Hello, my beautiful patrons of YouTube. If you've clicked on this video, you're most likely here to try and see how to get your video to look better. Let's get into it. So, the first things first, when you are trying to make a video for YouTube or whatever, but you're doing it on your computer, obviously you can't just get your iPhone and just screen record your PC. That's not how screen recording works. So, this application I'm using right here, called OBS, it stands for Open Broadcasting System, I believe. And you're gonna use this. This is what everybody uses. It's free, and it's very powerful. It's got a bunch of plugins. There is a sister application of this software called Slobs, which is Streamlabs OBS. And that's gonna be something, you can look that up on YouTube. I don't use Slobs personally because it runs a bit more on your CPU. So if you've got like a low-end system, OBS is going to be your bread and butter. All right, this right here can get you everything you need. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it. You're gonna open up File right here, click Settings, and this is where you're gonna set everything up for your videos. Now, if your videos are laggy or just blurry, here are the settings you're going to have to change to make sure that you're getting the most clear, concise video recording you can for your system. First of all, you're going to go over here to your video tab and you're going to look for the base resolution. This has nothing to really do with the video. This is what OBS is going to use to set up the width and length of your monitor. So you're going to want to set this base resolution to whatever your computer's resolution is. Then the output scale resolution. Now, this is what might make your video look a little bit more blurry. If you're recording in 1080, then you should have the output resolution also in 1080. Scaling it down usually ends up making it look a bit blurry. There's not anything you can really do about that unless you go to like some post-processing techniques after you've made the video, but it's outputting the recording at a resolution that you're not recording it at. Basically, if your computer is at 1080p, you should have it record to 1080p. People will be able to put the quality down themselves if they need to. For FPS, this can literally be anything at 60 or up. I have it at 90 because I play Apex a lot and I want to make sure that my recording is capturing all of the movements. The higher FPS you have, the more frames that it's going to capture in your recording. You don't need to have this at 90. 60 will work absolutely fine. This downscale filter will not be required because we're not downscaling. You're going to keep this at 1080. Now, this will not solve it by itself. You're going to have to also go on over here, the output tab. This is where things get a little confusing, but don't worry, your boy's here to clear it up for you. Now, again, we're not streaming, we're recording, so we're gonna head over to recording. And I have my output mode set to advanced because I did the work to look into what all these things mean and do, and though I have forgotten the precise definition for every single thing, I will go over it as best as I can, while also not being able to open it up because I am currently recording right now. So first thing you're gonna notice, it's gonna have recording path, which this is where all your videos are gonna be set after you click stop recording. Then there's the video encoder. So when you're using your video encoder, anything that has like NVIDIA, NVENC, this is using your GPU. If it has like X264, that's using your CPU. And depending on if you have a if you have a GPU or not, then you're gonna want to change your video encoder. But you're going to generally want your GPU to be the one handling it because it's more suited to handling video encoding and stuff like that. However, if you really do need the trade-off because like you're playing a game that's graphic intensive and you're noticing a lot of stuttering in your game, then I would change the video encoder to be your CPU. Just make sure you have a CPU that can handle all of the encoding. So just make sure it's got like, at least a good clock speed. After choosing the video encoder, which again, you can choose either this one or 264, which would basically be just this number by itself with an X. The first thing you're going to do is disable the rescale output, because again, what that does is it scales your video down to a lower resolution. And we don't want that. We don't want our videos look blurry. But going down, this is where everything gets important, the encoder settings. Now, the rate control, this might be set to something different, like VBR, lossless, or CQP. All of these are like very intensive options for your rate control. This is variable bitrate. For example, it will give your video a certain amount of bitrate and it will change it dynamically based on like what the system is currently handling. You don't want that. You want it to be consistent. CBR stands for constant bitrate. You want it to be the same. So after you set it to CBR, you then need to pick a bitrate. I will put a list right here of bit rates that work for different resolutions, but when you are recording, you generally want to have a higher bit rate. So 10,000 kilobits per second is a good bit rate for 1080p. What this also does is, let's say your video is like an hour long, this bit rate will make your video size be about like a gigabyte, maybe a gigabyte and a half. The lower you set your bit rate, the less amount of space your video will take up in storage. However, the less bits you allocate towards your encoder, the more blurry it will look. I've done a lot of testing with all of these settings, and the most important one is this right here. You're gonna set this to CBR, and you're gonna set this from anything no lower than 8,000. No lower than 8,000. All right. Now, what that translates to is, because kilobits is not the same thing as like kilobytes, and megabits is not the same thing as megabytes. We'll put it this way: a byte is 8 bits. So 1 megabyte is 8 megabits. So I've got 10,000 kilobits here. That, oh god, let's bring up the calculator. No, fuck. So here's the calculator. We got 10,000 bits. So we're gonna divide that by 8. That gives us 1,250 kilobytes. 1,000 kilobytes is a megabyte. So my video rate is basically per second 1 megabyte. Now, you don't need to know all of that to be able to make a video, but it's helpful to know it. And there you go. That's all you really need to know. You're gonna start, you're gonna get OBS. You're going to use this thing over here called display capture to capture your scenes, or game capture. I prefer game capture, it's less laggy. And then you're gonna make sure you're gonna make sure to go to your settings, go to video, set your base resolution, make sure your output scaled resolution is the same as your base resolution. You don't want any downscaling because these should be the same. Then set your FPS for whatever you need it. It does not need to be 90, it can be 60. 60 is good. Most people need 60. Stay at 60. Then you're gonna go into your output. You're gonna click away from streaming and go to recording. Now, if you don't see these options, you need to change this output mode up here to advanced. Then all you're gonna do is click a video encoder, which NVIDIA NVENC H6264 is good if you have a GPU. If you don't have a GPU, use X264. That will use your CPU for a video encoder. Make sure you have rescale output disabled. For rate control, you're gonna click constant bitrate. Then you're gonna set this to a number no lower than 8,000 kilobits per second. If you're having some issues running your game or your software, then I would lower this to something around 6,500 kilobits, but expect it to be a little bit more fuzzy. It won't be too fuzzy, but I wouldn't go any lower than like 8,000, if I'm gonna be honest. 8,000 is a good minimum. and you are recording, so it's not like you're sending this like through the internet. So, and that's where things get complicated, is because the bit rate that you use will be different when it comes to streaming than it is recording. This is just how much bitrate you're allocating to the save space inside of your video. So that's all you need. That should fix your video. There you go.